Some kids are smart. Some kids are gifted. But Samuel Carter was something the world had never seen before. Born in a small town in the U.S., 1859, a time when the world barely understood electricity, let alone genius. Samuel's first words weren't "mama" or "papa." They were full sentences, questions that made adults stumble, questions like, "Why does the sun follow me?" By the age of 3, he could read, not just books, encyclopedias, scientific papers. He memorized them all. His mother watched in awe, terrified. People whispered in town, "That boy, he's unnatural." By 5, Samuel was building strange machines in the backyard. He used scraps, wires, glass. Neighbors said it was magic. Scientists called it impossible. School was no challenge. Arithmetic was boring. Reading? Too easy. History? He corrected his teachers. Every day someone tried to explain him. Every day they failed. He spoke to adults like he was their equal, smarter sometimes. Teachers argued with him. Parents frowned. But Samuel never stopped asking, never stopped learning. No one could predict what he would do next. Once, he calculated the trajectory of a falling apple before it even hit the ground. Another time, he fixed a broken clock that had baffled the town's watchmaker for months in under 10 minutes. By 7, scientists came. They brought books, tools, questions. They wanted to measure him, test him, explain him. Samuel smiled. He played along but always stayed one step ahead. Even his peers didn't understand him. They called him the boy who knew too much. They feared him. And in the quiet of night, Samuel would sit by candlelight, drawing machines no one would ever understand. Something about Samuel was different. Something about him made adults nervous. The town whispered of genius and of something beyond explanation. But this is just the beginning. Samuel was only a child. The world had yet to see the true extent of his mind. The moment was coming when science itself would be forced to admit it could not explain him. If you're amazed by Samuel's story, hit like, share, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for the next of his incredible journey. By the time Samuel turned 8, the world began to notice. School had become a circus. Teachers whispered behind closed doors. How does he know so much? Samuel didn't just answer questions, he asked them. Questions that made adults freeze. Questions that had no answers. In the classroom, he solved math problems no one had seen before, equations that would have stumped grown scientists. And he did it on scraps of paper, no textbooks needed. At home, he conducted experiments, lightning in a jar, small explosions, strange machines that whirred, buzzed, and sometimes smoked. His mother gasped. She didn't know if she should be proud or afraid. Neighbors started pawing. Some came to watch, some to warn. "The boy is cursed," they whispered. Others said, "The boy is a miracle." One day, a scientist arrived from a nearby city. He brought complicated instruments, charts, and questions. He wanted to test Samuel. Samuel smiled. The scientist started. He asked complex physics questions. Samuel answered, not just correctly, but faster than any machine could calculate. The scientist grew uneasy. He tried harder questions. Samuel laughed. "That's too simple," he said, and wrote an answer that no adult could follow. Word spread like wildfire. Samuel was no longer a curiosity. He was a sensation. People came from miles around to see him. Some wanted to study him, others just to see if he was human. At night, Samuel would lie awake thinking. Machines, numbers, patterns, ideas that no one had imagined. He didn't care about fame. He only cared about understanding. Everything. By 9, he was designing inventions that were decades ahead of their time. A machine to measure the wind, a device that predicted the weather. And he didn't stop. Adults tried to keep up. They failed. Scientists argued, townsfolk gossiped, but Samuel didn't care. His mind was moving faster than their questions. And yet, something was coming. Something that would challenge even Samuel. Something no amount of intelligence could prepare him for. By the age of 10, Samuel's mind was a storm that no one could calm. People came from across the country, scientists, journalists, curious townsfolk. All wanted to see the boy who defied explanation. Samuel welcomed them with a quiet smile. He didn't need to prove anything, but he did anyway. They brought tests, puzzles, machines designed to measure intelligence, complex questions meant to stump him. Samuel solved them all. Not slowly, not hesitantly, but instantly, faster than any clock could tick. One scientist brought a strange device. He claimed it could measure a person's mental capacity. Samuel studied it carefully, then touched it, and it sparked, fizzled, and broke. The room went silent. Adults exchanged nervous glances. Some murmured, "This is impossible." Others whispered, "This boy is beyond science." But Samuel didn't brag. He just shrugged. "I was curious," he said simply. Then came the moment that changed everything. A mathematician presented a problem no one had solved. Not in books, not in labs. Samuel stared at it for minutes. Long minutes. The room held its breath. Then, with a flick of his pen, Samuel wrote the solution. Not an approximation, not a guess, a perfect, elegant answer. The mathematician's jaw dropped. He scanned Samuel's work. He scanned it again and again. His hands shook. This is impossible," he stammered. Samuel smiled faintly. "It isn't impossible. You just hadn't thought of it this way." Word spread. Newspapers called him a prodigy. Some called him a miracle. Some called him unnatural. The boy who could bend numbers, machines, and minds now stood at the edge of legend. And yet, Samuel felt no pride. He felt curiosity. Questions that no one had asked, questions that science couldn't answer, questions that would soon push him into a world even he hadn't imagined. The first challenge was over, but the true test was just beginning. If you're amazed by Samuel's mind and can't wait to see what he does next, hit like, share, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for next of his unbelievable journey. Even the smartest adults couldn't understand how Samuel thought. By 11, whispers spread. Does he sleep? Does he dream? Samuel had a secret, a method no one could see, a mind that worked in ways science couldn't touch. He spent hours alone in his room, candle flickering, paper scattered across the floor, machines half built, half imagined. He wasn't just thinking, he was creating worlds inside his head, worlds of numbers, patterns, and possibilities, worlds no adult could enter. Sometimes townsfolk peeked through the window. They saw him scribbling, muttering formulas no one had seen. Some feared him, others were in awe. At school, he listened quietly while others spoke. Then, suddenly, he would raise his hand. Not to answer, to invent, to explain things no one had yet discovered. He built strange devices, small machines that moved on their own, wheels, levers, wires. They weren't for fun, they were experiments, testing ideas too complex to explain aloud. Teachers watched in amazement. Scientists scratched their heads. Townsfolk whispered about magic. Samuel never revealed his secret, not fully, not even to his parents. He knew the world wasn't ready. The world wasn't ready for the depth of his mind. At night, he would lie awake imagining machines that could do the impossible, machines that predicted events, machines that solved problems before they even happened. Sometimes he wrote equations no one could read, symbols, numbers, patterns flowing like music, a code only he understood. But Samuel wasn't doing this for fame. Not for money, not for recognition. He did it because he had to, because his mind wouldn't stop, because curiosity was a fire that refused to die. And that fire would soon lead him to a challenge that not even Samuel could predict. The world was watching, but Samuel was watching the world. Learning, planning, creating. The boy who defied science had more secrets than anyone imagined, and the greatest secret was yet to be revealed. If Samuel's mind fascinates you and you want to uncover his hidden secrets, hit like, share, comment what you think his next invention will be, and subscribe for next of his astonishing journey. By 12, Samuel's fame had spread far beyond his small town. People traveled from distant cities, scientists, reporters, curious onlookers, all wanted to witness the boy who outsmarted reason itself. He performed feats that left adults trembling, calculations that would take professors hours, he solved in seconds. Machines that no one could build, he created from scraps. Yet not everyone celebrated him. Skeptics emerged. Men in labs and offices scoffed. It's luck, they said, a trick, impossible to sustain. Samuel ignored them. Curiosity, not recognition, drove him. One day, a famous scientist arrived with a challenge. Solve this problem, he demanded. If you succeed, the world will believe. Samuel studied it silently, eyes sharp, mind faster than the ticking clock. Minutes passed. The room grew tense. Whispered doubts filled the air. Then Samuel wrote the answer. Perfect, elegant, unimaginable. The scientist stared, mouth open, hands shaking. This is beyond explanation. People gasped, some cheered, others whispered darkly, too smart, too unnatural. But fame was only part of the story. Samuel felt the pressure, eyes of the world watching, expectations growing heavier. Even townsfolk, once in awe, now questioned him. Is this boy human or something else? Samuel kept creating machines, formulas, inventions, experiments no one could predict. Yet a subtle fear crept in. Some adults didn't just doubt him, they envied him. He noticed their glances, their whispers, their attempts to discredit him. Samuel's mind, always racing, began thinking not just about discovery, but about trust, about who truly understood him. The boy who had amazed the world now faced another challenge, not numbers, not machines, but human suspicion. And with each skeptical glance, Samuel grew stronger, smarter, more determined. He would not let doubt stop him. He would prove that intelligence could not be chained by disbelief. But the next test would not come from humans alone. It would come from forces even science could not predict. If Samuel's brilliance keeps you on the edge of your seat, hit like, share, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to follow next, where his next unbelievable breakthrough will shake the world. By 13, Samuel's mind was no longer just extraordinary, it was unstoppable. He had solved problems adults swore were unsolvable. Machines that confounded the smartest engineers, he repaired and improved in minutes. But Samuel was not satisfied. Not yet. He wanted something bigger, something the world had never seen. Late at night, in his small room, he worked silently. Candles flickered. Shadows danced across walls filled with sketches and equations. He built a machine unlike any before. Wires twisted like vines. Gears turned with quiet precision. A strange humming filled the air. He tested it, and it worked. It didn't just measure, it predicted. Patterns in nature, movement of wind, water, even the tides. Things humans had studied for centuries, he calculated in seconds. Word of his invention spread faster than ever. Scientists flocked to see it. Some were in awe, others jealous. A journalist asked, "Samuel, how do you do it?" He smiled. "I observe. I imagine. I think in ways you cannot see." Even adults struggled to understand. The boy had invented what they considered impossible. But fame brought danger. Curiosity turned into fear. Skeptics whispered darkly, "This boy is not meant to exist. It's unnatural." Samuel ignored them. His eyes were fixed on the future, on discovery, on the next impossible thing he could create. Then came the moment that would change everything. He demonstrated his machine before a crowd of scientists. They watched in disbelief as it predicted storms, tides, even subtle shifts in the weather with perfect accuracy. A professor gasped, It's like he can see the world before it happens." Samuel didn't boast, he just nodded quietly, his mind already racing toward the next invention, the next question, the next impossible feat. But not everyone applauded. Some saw danger. Some saw a boy whose mind could not be controlled. And that would soon set the stage for challenges far greater than any math problem or invention. If Samuel's genius amazes you, hit like, share, comment what you think his next invention could be, and subscribe for next, where the world begins to notice and fear him. By 14, Samuel Carter was no longer just a prodigy. He was a sensation. Newspapers called him a miracle. Scientists called him a mystery. Townsfolk whispered, "The boy who defies reason." Journalists arrived from cities, cameras, quills, ink bottles. Everyone wanted a piece of him. Samuel didn't seek attention. He let it come, quietly observing the chaos. He demonstrated his inventions, calculated impossibilities, solved puzzles thought unsolvable. Crowds gasped. Adults gaped. Some clutched their chests. "How can one boy do this?" they murmured. But the more fame grew, the heavier the weight on Samuel. Skeptics became critics. Critics became accusers. Men in suits questioned his methods. Scientists demanded explanations he couldn't or wouldn't give. Samuel smiled politely. Inside, he barely noticed. His mind was already elsewhere. He built machines that predicted storms. He calculated trajectories of falling objects. He solved equations that had baffled the world for decades. And everywhere he went, whispers followed. Unnatural, gifted beyond reason, too smart for a child. At night, Samuel felt it. Eyes on him, judgment, fear, even envy. One evening, a journalist asked, "Samuel, do you ever worry that maybe people fear you?" He paused, thought, "I don't want them to fear me. I just want to understand the world." But the truth was clear. The world would not just notice him, it would challenge him. Even those who cheered could turn against him. Curiosity often breeds doubt. Doubt often breeds fear. And fear can be dangerous. Samuel's brilliance had lifted him high, but it had also drawn attention from those who couldn't comprehend it. The boy who had amazed everyone now stood on the edge of a storm, one that no invention, no calculation could predict. His mind was unstoppable, his fame unavoidable, and the next chapter would push him to the limits of genius and humanity alike. If Samuel's story keeps you on the edge of your seat, hit like, share, comment your thoughts on his next challenge, and subscribe for next, where the tension escalates and disbelief turns into fear. By 15, the world no longer just marveled at Samuel Carter. Some began to fear him. Praise turned into suspicion. Curiosity turned into whispers of danger. Scientists who once applauded now questioned his very existence. No human mind should do this, they said. The press splashed headlines: boy genius or something else, miracle or threat. Samuel Carter, the mind science cannot explain. Even townsfolk, once proud, hesitated. Some crossed the street to avoid him. Others watched with wide, fearful eyes. Samuel noticed. He felt the shift. The excitement had become tension. Admiration had twisted into doubt. He continued his experiments. Machines hummed. Equations flew from his pen like lightning. Patterns, predictions, inventions, everything advanced faster than anyone could follow. But now every success sparked fear. Every demonstration prompted whispers. Is he too powerful? Can he be trusted? One afternoon, a scientist challenged him publicly. "Samuel, prove that your methods are natural. Prove they can be replicated." Samuel studied the challenge, quietly, patiently. Then, with a simple demonstration, he solved it, perfectly, elegantly. The crowd was silent. Astonishment mixed with unease. Some called it genius, others called it unnatural. Even his closest allies began to doubt him. Could a boy really possess this level of understanding? Could a child truly outthink decades of human knowledge? Samuel didn't answer. He kept working. His mind had no limits. His curiosity had no bounds. And yet, he felt the weight of the world's fear pressing down. This was a new kind of challenge, not numbers, not machines, not puzzles. Human doubt, human disbelief, human suspicion. Samuel realized something crucial. Genius alone could not protect him from fear, from envy, from those who wanted to control or stop him. And the tension, it was only growing. The boy who had once amazed the world now faced a darker reality. Brilliance could inspire awe and terror. If Samuel's story fascinates and chills you, hit like, share, comment how you think he will overcome this fear, and subscribe for next, where Samuel must confront the greatest challenge yet. By 16, Samuel Carter stood at a crossroads. The world admired him. The world feared him. The world wanted to control him. For the first time, Samuel felt pressure, not from questions, not from puzzles, but from expectation. Scientists demanded answers. Townsfolk demanded reassurance. Journalists demanded stories. Samuel retreated. Alone in his room, candle flickering, papers scattered, machines humming quietly. He pondered. He weighed every choice, every invention, every demonstration could change the world or endanger him. He could continue to show his genius openly, inspire the world, but risk envy, fear, and backlash. Or he could hide some of his methods, protect himself, but hide his full potential from a world that needed it. The tension was unbearable. He thought of all he had created, equations that bent logic, machines that predicted the future, knowledge far beyond his years. He realized something important. Genius without courage was useless. Knowledge without action was meaningless. Samuel made a choice. He would not hide. He would not shrink. He would face the world, head on, mind blazing, heart steady. The next demonstration was his most daring yet, a machine that could predict events no one had thought possible, a device that could measure, calculate, and anticipate the world in ways science could not explain. The crowd gathered, skeptics leaned forward, journalists held their breath. Samuel activated the machine. Patterns unfolded. Predictions came true. Equations solved themselves. Observers gasped. Some cheered. Others stared in disbelief, even fear. But Samuel remained calm, confident, unyielding. He had made his choice. Brilliance was not a curse. Fear was not a barrier. The world could doubt him, but he would not doubt himself. In that moment, Samuel Carter became more than a boy. He became a force, a mind beyond measure, a genius that history would never forget. If you're inspired by Samuel's courage and brilliance, hit like, share, comment what you think his next move should be, and subscribe for next, the final of his extraordinary journey. By 17, Samuel Carter had changed everything the world thought it knew. The boy who once puzzled teachers now puzzled history itself. His inventions, his calculations, his predictions had reshaped how people saw intelligence. The press called him a genius. Some called him a miracle. Some still whispered, unnatural. Samuel didn't care about labels. He had chosen courage over fear, action over doubt, discovery over comfort. He continued his experiments. Machines hummed, equations flowed. Ideas that once seemed impossible now unfolded naturally under his mind. Yet Samuel never sought fame. He sought understanding, truth, knowledge that could help the world. Townsfolk who once feared him now watched in awe. Scientists who doubted him now studied his methods. And journalists, they finally understood they were witnessing history. But Samuel remained humble. A boy who could calculate the impossible still wondered, still questioned, still imagined. His greatest lesson? Brilliance alone was not enough. Curiosity, courage, and perseverance defined true genius. He inspired others. Children in his town began asking questions. Teachers encouraged exploration. Scientists embraced wonder alongside knowledge. Samuel's legacy spread far beyond his small hometown. Stories of his mind traveled across continents. People marveled. People were inspired. And yet for Samuel, it was never about recognition. It was about discovery, about pushing boundaries, about showing the world that the human mind, no matter age, no matter background, could achieve the unimaginable. As he grew, he continued to learn, to invent, to explore. The boy who had defied science became a symbol, a reminder that curiosity and determination could break all barriers. Samuel Carter's story was no longer just about intelligence. It was about courage, about daring to be different, about choosing to shine even when the world fears your light. The boy genius had become a legend. If Samuel's incredible journey inspired you, hit like, share, comment what amazed you most, and subscribe to explore more unbelievable stories like his.